Excellent. Well, we will get started. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Tonight I have with us our Chief Academic Officer, Iona McKinney. Iona, welcome.
Hello, James. How are you? It's great to be here on a lovely, cold Melbourne evening on a Tuesday. And I'm really looking forward to talking with everybody about the Diploma of Project Management.
That's it. So the BSB51415, Diploma of Project Management, student information session, which is, of course, is designed for any prospective students or those who are looking or certainly considering a career, or they might already be working in the project management space, looking to pick up some qualifications or even formalise them in that space. We find a lot of students actually that come through are already working in project management. It's a nice way to formalise a lot of the skills and knowledge that they've already got and pick up some new skills and frameworks that they can implement each and every day.
Most definitely. This course is a very comprehensive course, and it introduces students to a lot of different concepts, and they truly do get to develop deeper project management knowledge with real hands-on activities. And so it's a great course, and it's been developed for people to develop the skills and knowledge to work as project managers, project officers, across industry sectors. So it's not, I wouldn't call it a generic course, but what it actually does do is it actually, as it says here on the slide, it's a comprehensive course that is everything from what to do before you even think about a project, all the way through to how to close off a project and what to do with your lessons learned from your project, which sometimes we don't come across in some project management courses. So the course itself covers managing the project scope, quality, time, cost, teams, managing team effectiveness, continuous improvement processes, quality assurance, quality management, working with ISO standards. We refer a lot to, as much as it's not used as a text, but within the course we actually refer a lot to the Project Management Book of Knowledge, which helps to build students' fundamental knowledge and skill in preparation for example applying to AIPM to do their project management accreditation. We also include human resources. As I said before, we look at project inception, which is the beginning of a project, all the way through to how to close off a project, take those lessons that we've learnt from the project and incorporate lessons we've learned from other projects into our review process, which is always very important. And so it's a really comprehensive course that has quite a number of disciplines in it. Excuse me, and we're finding that students are actually truly benefiting it from the breadth of the course and the depth of the knowledge and the resources that are available in the course.
Now, with the course material itself, and certainly it goes into a number of areas, really can be applied to just about any industry, isn't it? I mean, we're seeing demand for project managers across all sorts of spaces, whether it be manufacturing and, obviously information technology is a big one, the retail space even. Most
definitely. So retail, as you said, education, general business settings where we're developing, or introducing and implementing new systems, IT systems, administration systems. Excuse me. The course is actually geared for those day-to-day people that, not people, but those day-to-day projects that a lot of businesses undertake, so strategic projects. Now you're the strategic projects coordinator for mentor education. So if I was talking to you about it, I guess I'd be saying, it's about project planning and quality management and interpreting our standards and bringing our standards into our practices and our documentation, and doing things like developing those schedules of work that are really necessary for us to complete those projects. And I'm sure that you'd agree with me, James, as our strategic projects coordinator, that the depth of knowledge in the course as we've gone about it, we've used a lot of our own learning as well, because we, like a lot of organisations, we have projects within projects within projects. So there's a number of sub-projects that can occur as well as part of a larger strategic initiative. One of the things I think that a lot of businesses have is that strategy and their strategy for the next 3 years, 5 years, whatever. And so this course is actually designed to ensure that we have people working in project management roles that can undertake the project work that relates to organisational strategy. Excuse me. Back to you for a moment, James.
Yeah, of course. And it's very interesting that you say that, and it's very much practice what you preach. I'll certainly say that to yourself and everybody who's tuned in, that there's a lot of documents and templates that actually appear in the course that I use in my day-to-day work, which was very handy and a bit of a time saver for me, certainly in my role. But it really kind of gets back to that point that it is very practical. Look at the sort of tools and things that you do implement in your day, each and every week and each and every day, whether it be project reporting templates, timeline templates, all of those sort of things, which is really quite interesting. And even a couple of the other industries that we've seen sort of come through. Another big cohort is the construction industry as well, so there's certainly application there. It extends beyond that education, that retail, that IT, into that real world on the ground scenario.
Whilst the course doesn't include the specific construction templates that we would use for, say, a large-scale construction project, the tasks that we actually introduce and the steps that we go through within the course are all the same steps that you would use with any project. So we will always have industry-specific documentation, always. So if we're introducing a new administrative system, we will have documentation that relates directly to that. But the course itself is actually structured so it takes us through all of those tasks that we would do on any project. So thank you, James. You've just brought up the course outline. So if we're looking at the course outline itself, we can see, and I'll talk about these units in reverse if we like. So I'll start by discussing the elective units. So the elective units contain all of the additional aspects of a project or we try and introduce as many as is practical in the time allowed for the course. But they're about working with your team and about ourselves and how we develop our own work priorities and maintaining our own currency in an ever-changing marketplace and industry at the moment. And continuous improvement, any project always has, or maybe part of a continuous improvement process, but it always has an element of continuous improvement in it because we're always it's the old plan, do, check, act. We're always going through that process and facilitating continuous improvement as far as, PDCA is concerned is incredibly important. But the project-specific units have been deliberately chosen because they are those core and common tasks that we do when we're working with a project. So project scope is very obvious. Managing project time is about scheduling, and it's about work breakdown structures and how to work out exactly how long it will take something to do, what resources we'll need to do that. Project quality looks at the international standards and the family of standards. So there's 5 standards within the ISO family. And we look at not only the standard structuring guidelines and industry requirements, but we also look at how we can implement that as part of our quality assurance processes as well. Project cost. Managing project costs can actually be a very complex thing to do. So we look at project budgeting, we look at how to do variations, we look at estimating and the ways that we do estimating before we actually start a project so we can establish what we think our costs will be. Human resources is about that team element. And a project team can be a very diverse team. And it can have a range of people at very different levels in an organisation because we need the expertise of all of those people to actually ensure that the project completes specifically and on time. information and communication is literally about that. You know, what information do we create? How do we communicate that information? How do we develop a communication plan with that, so we're actually communicating not just with our internal stakeholders, but our external stakeholders. And external stakeholders and communication is incredibly important. If we don't develop a good relationship with our suppliers, the things we need to complete our project just might not get delivered. So we need to look at how we communicate as far as our projects are concerned. Risks are always important. There's always a number of risks that occur in any environment. Doesn't matter whether it's construction, whether it's building, whether it's IT, what it is. There's always a common number of risks, but it's how do we identify them? What ways do we identify how we'll respond to that risk, and how do we reduce the risk as for a project? And integration is excuse me, very, very important. This project any project actually has to work within or happen within the context of the organisation that's created the project. So how do we integrate that project into the day-to-day operations of the business? So all in all, the course is, as I said earlier, it's quite broad, and these are all very much skills that we would use and knowledge that we would apply on any project that we worked on. We also, in the course, as much as it's not mentioned here, we have an introduction module, and then we also have a closing a project off module as well. So it's on each end of the course. So students actually experience the process for project management, from the first idea of developing the business case all the way through to, as I said before, taking our lessons learnt and what do we do with those lessons. Closing off a project team. We may have a group of people, for example, that have worked together very, very, very closely for 2 years on a large project. They've developed relationships, they've worked very well together, they've had this amazing achievement by completing this project. So how do we actually, in a positive way, disband a project team? So we also include that in the course as well as part of the final module. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think that's a really important element there, and it leads us into the next bit of information that we've got up in front of us, which provides a little bit of insight into the industry, but what life can be like as a project manager. And that idea of assembling or disassembling a team at the beginning and the end of a project is a very, very real aspect, that I don't think is considered in a lot of circumstances. And I think that's why it's nice to have that, I suppose, those real world applications embedded in the training itself. Now, we've touched a little bit about, I suppose, life as a project manager, and the emphasis on things such as planning and organising projects, the support services. Of course, there's the contracting and managing the teams of people. There's a real emphasis on it. But I think what's really exciting is that it is an industry that is expected to grow, or certainly a job function that's expected to grow across a whole range of industries. And we've identified that this idea of project management can apply in just about any industry, but organisations are looking for those who can start, run, manage, and essentially finish those projects. And what we can see here, according to seek.com.au, expectations of growth, of 6.2% over the next 5 years, for roles in, project management, and the Australian Government Outlook goes on to show that the industry has strong future growth and low levels of unemployment. I suppose from your insight, Iona, why do you think it is that there is such an expectation for growth in the project management space?
Well, I guess we could just simply look at what's happened here in Australia in the last few months. So we know we've had this event that's happened, and we know that it's affected, a number of industries. And one of the ways that we respond, for example, to regenerating employment opportunities and regenerating industry is with major infrastructure projects. And with every what do they say? I think it's every 3 kilometres of railway line takes a project manager to manage, to actually ensure that that part of the the project is complete. So you often have large project teams. And at the moment, we've got a real growth in these major projects. Businesses themselves will actually look at different opportunities, and they will take these challenges, consider them opportunities, and then they'll create smaller projects for themselves. So there'll be a number of projects across industries that will require people with project management skills. And that's where we get that expected growth of 6.2%. And often we know that, those numbers are subjective. But if we look at, those announcements that are happening at the moment, and of course, no course is a guarantee of employment. But what courses like this do is they actually provide the person that has completed the course with the ability to say, yes, I've written a business case. Yes, I know how to write a project plan. Yes, I know what scheduling is all about. So often they can work in a variety of roles within an organisation because they have that broad base of skills to ensure that things get done. And so from that respect as well, it's a very positive thing for anyone to hold a Diploma of Project Management. Often we find that people will complete a Diploma of Business, for example, and then come back and do project management because they're working as an entrepreneur, and they're developing their own product and their own or their own process. And so a course like the Diploma of Project Management actually provides them with the skills and the knowledge and the ability to be able to go through that process and to be able to control that process in a positive way. Excuse me. I'm sorry, everybody. I've got the beginnings of a cold, so excuse me.
Look, it certainly is really a cross-functional discipline, isn't it? I mean, it touches on just so many different elements of the business. Now, moving a little bit away from that, let's talk about the learning material itself that's embedded in the units that we discussed earlier on. I mean, what can students expect? Websites, articles, textbooks?
And more.
And more. Okay,
and
right.
And more. So what we try and do is provide the most comprehensive set of materials that we can resource to support the outcome, an outcome for a student. So the course is, we provide the textbooks with the course, and there's actually 3 textbooks provided with the Diploma of Project Management. There's also specific learner guides for tighter focus on core themes and concepts. And there's audio lectures, but the other thing that we do provide is an option for live tutorials once a week for students, and which I think are here on the slide as webinars. And the course itself is also, we provide populated templates, so students actually have an example of what this document could look like. Now, you've used some of those templates, you were saying, James. And so the idea with that is it's great to give somebody a project scope template and go, here, fill in the blanks, right? And the person, as they're moving into working in projects and projects management as a project officer, or straight in, depending on seniority and experience, so they want to manage their own projects. You look at this gap in this template and you go, what do I write there? So what we've attempted to do is provide people with real-world examples within the templates, and as part of as part of the course, there's also discussion forums available in some units, and a lot of video that talks about the true deep knowledge of what this is about. So we have, again, because I've just talked about a lot of things. So we have, again, the textbooks, the learner guides. There are downloadable presentations, which are the PowerPoint, for example. There are the audio lectures as well, so people can actually download them if they want to, or just listen to them like a podcast on their phone. Then there's populated templates with real-world examples. We utilize a lot of case studies as well. And the case studies, there's some great projects in there. There's everything from Google to Disneyland to excuse me, Apple. So In all of the learning materials, there is a broad range, so students can develop I keep using this broad word, so develop a more comprehensive uptake of what project management means in different contexts.
Now, these elements that you mentioned are delivered by way of the online learning management system. And so, in addition to, say, an internet connection and a computer, I mean, are there any other requirements for students to access those materials?
No. The learning management system is accessible on multiple devices. So students can use their desktop computer, they can use their iPad, they can use an Android tablet, their mobile phone. I know every now and then when I'm building courses and working in courses, I test it on my own iPhone and an Android phone. So I can assure everybody it works in all those different platforms. And it's a very straightforward, if you like, learning environment. So it works like a book. Down the left-hand side, I'm not sure we can see it very, very clearly here. Down the left-hand side, you have a table of contents, and you work through the table of contents and the materials within each unit of study.
Sorry, just one thing that we touched on there. To, I suppose, support the online learning management system is the virtual tutorials. Now, they're run through the Diploma of Project Management. They're made available to the cohort. And that's an opportunity to engage in a forum, a little, I suppose, similar to this, but where you can not just communicate, I suppose, with your lecturer and work through tutorials and course materials, but also other students as well.
So every Wednesday, we have a tutorial session for the Diploma of Project Management. On average, the sessions are around about an hour to an hour and a half. And they're live sessions. So if students were to log in this week, they'd be listening to me talking about managing project time. And so we actually explore the topic. We explore the topic a lot deeper. And at the end of that live session, we also have discussion time. The other thing that's available, and I know I'm coming back to the learning management system, but I forgot to mention it, is that within the learning management system and as part of this course, we have a number of self-directed learning activities. And those self-directed learning activities could relate to the text, but they also might involve a research task. So hop over to Microsoft's website and have a look at their initiative for World Environment Management, which, by the way, everybody that's listening today, is a really exciting thing. Go and have a look, because it's an amazing project and it's about measuring the world. Or alternately, students will actually access their textbooks from within the learning management system as well. So everything is downloadable, or they can actually leave it encapsulated within the learning management system. So there's an ease of access to all of the learning management, all of the learning materials.
Excellent. Now, I suppose an area of interest for many students is that of the assessment. So we've talked about the job outlook, we've talked about the job role itself, the course materials, how they're delivered by way of the learning management system. But as all students are very interested in know, how am I assessed?
Okay. Well, we would never use all of these things in one assessment, okay? And because when we list it like that, James, it looks very scary. I know if it was me and I was looking at that list and I went, oh no, I don't do that all that in one place, do I? No, you don't. In all assessments, there is a short answer question section about the knowledge that's required for the unit. Some units of study have multiple choice review questions, some don't. In the self-directed learning activities, we'll come across case studies and scenario responses, critical thinking exercises. So they're part of your actual learning within the unit rather than the assessment quite often. The projects are always about different dimensions of what we're learning. So for example, in the work in the Personal Work Priorities Unit, BSB51415. The project is to develop our own learning plan and to explore what learning opportunities are available to us. That's one of the assessment tasks. So it has a dual benefit. Not only are we doing an assessment, but we're also doing something that is really meaningful to us. And that is often what we attempt to do. Presentations will appear, but again, not everything together. Research tasks, there may be short papers, there may be research required for a project, where we suggest to students to research a particular process and then create a flowchart. So not everything is just read it, answer 20 questions, and then submit that as the assessment. There's often a lot of activities which really allow us to apply our learning. Excuse me. In this particular course, role play only occurs in one unit, and then it is a written role play. So it's about an exchange between two people. That's really about it. For all of the assessment tasks where there is a project-related document, we suggest that students actually utilise the template that's already been provided to them as an example. So they've already experienced that document, and then create a plan or a document that directly relates to the project that they've chosen to do throughout the course.
Okay. And a lot of this material or these assessment tasks, they will align quite closely to what people are expected to do in the real world.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. An assessment shouldn't be hard. An assessment should give us a chance to demonstrate to our educators or trainers or teachers what we've learned and how well that we can do that. So an assessment isn't, it shouldn't be a punitive thing. An assessment should actually be something that is, yes, I've had that aha moment, I've got it, and now I'm going to show you all about it. And that's the type of approach that we try and take and that we encourage students to take.
Excellent. Now, the next piece of information we have up here is the duration of the course. So you have 810 hours over a 12-month period.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's for students doing it full-time?
That is based on around about 20 to 22 hours per week. Excuse me. We find some students complete the course in a shorter amount of time because they may have, real-world experience, or they may have achieved credit transfer from another course they've done or applied for recognition of prior learning. So it is a guide. For some students, it takes them longer to work through the course. I guess one of the gifts of the courses at Mentor Education is that they're self-directed, and as much as we provide a lot of support and a lot of contact, it's really up to the student. So, excuse me, if you were to, for example, study this 35 hours a week and work through the course, it would take you less number of hours. So again, it's self-directed, and I really don't want to give a minimum and maximum. Some students prefer to start off full-time and then they switch to part-time study. We try and be as flexible as we possibly can because we understand that people have lives as well, and that's very important. We also understand that learning needs to be portable and it needs to be mobile, and we should support that for students as well.
Now, you mentioned the word flexibility. Look, if I wanted to take a little bit longer than 12 months, is that an option for me?
It certainly is. Students in a diploma course can take up to 2 years to complete the course. The course duration is 810 hours, which is actually the minimum time in an environment where students attend regular tutorials and work through the units in sequence, and that would be the average time that it takes to complete the course.
Okay, great. Now, with respect to support, we obviously offer unlimited email and phone support for students during business hours, and that's Melbourne, sort of Sydney time between 9 and 5, and certainly email works after hours there as well. But the other thing that I think is probably worth touching on again, and probably something which we're putting a big emphasis on, is the virtual tutorial and the sort of support that's made available through there as well. So that's on Wednesdays regularly. So that's every Wednesday for an hour or so. And you also have an opportunity then to speak directly with your tutor or your lecturer.
Most definitely. Often if students call in, they're able to, on that day, be put through to one of the education team for the course. And they can ask questions and work through any issues they're having on the day. Of course, sometimes we have high call volumes, and so students will need to be called back, and that always happens within 24 hours. We don't allow people to sit around for 3 days and not hear from anybody. That would be very, very unfair. And email support is always within 2 business days. Often it's a lot sooner, but again, it's about volume, and it's also about availability of the trainers, because our trainers are educators, so often they're taking classes and they're talking to students, and of course they're marking their assessments as they put them in. Now, I will mention assessment turnaround times. Assessment turnaround times, I'll be very honest with everybody, vary. So usually it's around about 10 to 14 days, but it may actually extend out to 28 days, depending on the volume of assessments that have been submitted. So, excuse me, everybody. So it's important to be aware that those times are guidelines, but we've always attempted to avoid booking appointments. We like students to be able to feel that they can contact us and talk with a trainer, rather than a student waiting 3 days through a booking form to be contacted. So yes.
Excellent. Now, we just had a question come in, and I've got a few which I've saved to the end, but it's directly related to what you were talking about with the virtual tutorials. Now, if a student misses the live session on the Wednesday, are they okay to go back and get access to a recording from a previous one?
Most definitely. So the sessions happen for this course on Wednesdays, and on Friday afternoon, students will receive a link, the slides, and a copy of the session plans for the session that was held on the Wednesday. All students that subscribe to the tutorials, some students are very happy, of course, not to do the tutorials, and they just like to do everything self-directed. But others, of course, like to subscribe to them. So that actually comes out for all courses. It's distributed to students on Friday afternoons.
Okay, great. And we'll move on to some frequently asked questions which often come through. And I'll do my best to cover off most of those where I can. Look, a question we often get asked is government funding. Now, that's not something that we offer, but what we do offer is flexible payment plans for students. And I think we do our best to work with students in, I suppose, a variety of different ways in which we can. Mentor Education's been a private business college that's worked really successfully for the last 17 years. And I think one of the, I suppose, the key things that we focus on is not just providing, I think, real world, high level qualifications, but also ones that are affordable and flexible enough for people to get access to.
Well, I think we're very lucky because just on that, there's also no additional cost to purchase textbooks. And we have no course that we offer where students are expected to pay something extra. Everything's built into the fees. And so it's often more cost effective for a student to actually pay off the cost of their course through a payment plan, for example, over the duration of their course, rather than signing an agreement to defer that and add it to their tax. So again, it's personal choice. We don't pretend to advise people about their finances, but we suggest to students that it is very, very worthwhile thinking about those payment plan options.
And the next question, of course, is when can I start? And You can start at just about any time. So even with the virtual tutorials, which we talked about, I mean, they're constantly rotating and being, I suppose, going through that course material. So if you do miss a session, you can go back and watch a previous recording and catch up at any time. I suppose on that, a question which we often get asked is, do I have to do the subjects in order, or can I kind of jump in and do a bit of a mix and match there?
We encourage students to do the course in sequence, because each unit does build on the knowledge for the next unit, and it's that what we've done is we've constructed the course in such a way that if we were undertaking to plan a project and create the documentation and work on a project, the course is sequenced similar to the same sequence that we use in a workplace. It can be studied out of sequence, but we encourage students, if they're going to study out of sequence, to ensure that they do every single self-directed learning activity that's in the course. So they create that foundational knowledge, and they understand they gain an understanding of the context that they're going to be completing their assessments in.
Excellent. Now I suppose we've very much covered that about it being all included. So that's the assessments, that's the textbooks, the whole bit. That's well and truly all included in the course fees. Now, of course, we do have a special offer available for people who tuned in tonight's student information session. So if you are looking at doing the Diploma of Project Management and taking advantage of the virtual tutorials, then when you do speak to a course consultant, or email them tonight or call them tomorrow, or however you'd like to get in contact, please make sure that you mention that you were attending last night's live student information session, and I'll extend that special pricing to you, which is part of our July Excite Your Potential end of financial year intake. Okay, so certainly make sure that you mention that if that's something that you're looking at getting involved in. We've talked very much about the study option. So we do have the self-directed learning, which is purely online, really no virtual classrooms, virtual support, anything like that, really designed for those who perhaps have done a lot of study online before, very confident with the self-directed space. But then I suppose the disadvantage of that is you do miss out on a lot of that interaction and building a cohort. And I mean, look, there's certainly things that you're going to learn from your tutors and your lecturers and the course material, but I think a big part of the educational process is things that you learn from the other students that you're doing the course with.
Very much so.
You know, it's very interesting, some of the insights that you get there. And I mean, look, even myself, I mean, I'm still studying, and I think I find I learn as much and get as much enjoyment I suppose, in the learning process as doing it with a cohort as I do actually going through that formal process. Is it nationally recognised? Yes, absolutely it is. So it's in line with the Australian Skills Qualifications Framework. Of course, a big one, any prerequisites?
No. We do suggest that students have a minimum of a Year 10 education. They have access to the internet, of course, because it is an online course, and that they have a reliable internet connection, and a printer. Printers are just a little bit important to print stuff. So as much as we attempt to support a paperless learning environment, as we should, yes, there are some things that you will probably want to print, like your templates, so you can make notes, all of that sort of thing. And
look, of course, how long do people take to finish? We very truly covered that. And we've actually got a question come in, and I understand you've got a number of project management certifications. And this is, I suppose, in response to the becoming PMP certified. Okay, so what sort of additional requirements are there, say, once you've done the Diploma of Project Management, to get, say, your PMP certification?
Okay, so that's always dependent upon the number of years work experience we have. It's also dependent on the individual themselves. And I'd suggest that if you were to want to learn more about that, that you contact the Australian Institute of Project Management and actually discuss that with them further. And
excellent.
yeah, it's always dependent on the individual, and it is always very worthwhile having a chat with them.
Excellent. Now, for those of you who are tuning in and you don't know what PMP stands for, it's an industry designation, and that's issued by the Australian Institute of Project Managers. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's yes, it is.
Okay, excellent. Now, we haven't had any other questions come in so far, so what we'll do is we'll call stumps. Again, thank you very much for joining us, Iona. Thank you very much for everybody who tuned in. We hope you got plenty out of it. Again, if you want some more information, head on over to the website, mentor.edu.au, give us a call, and what we can do is arrange to put you in touch with the most appropriate person. And of course, if you are looking at enrolling and taking advantage of the virtual tutorials, don't forget to mention that you attended tonight, and we'll ensure that the course consultants look after you. Thank you very much, Iona.
Thank you very much, James, and thanks everyone for attending. I hope to see you in my tutorials.
Okay, very good. See you later, guys.
Bye-bye.